Hey, what's up guys? Welcome back to the channel. My name is Frank Mularcik, and in this video we're going to be doing a brief stock analysis on Home Depot stock, ticker symbol HD. And if you guys did miss it, I actually made a video just last week on Lowe's stock. So if you want to go check that out right up here, I'll leave a link to that and you could watch that first maybe, because probably at the end of this video I'll be doing a little bit of a comparison just to kind of reflect on some of the things we went over in the Lowe's video and the Home Depot video. So it might be better to watch that Lowe's video first, but if you don't want to, that's fine as well. I would still love it if you would watch this video too. So first we're just going to look at the 10Q report from Q2 of 2021, and these numbers are basically as of August 1st, 2021. So that basically means that this report came out sometime within the last month, I believe. So looking here, just at the assets, we can see the cash, like I've been noticing with some companies in the past that I've been looking at over the past few weeks and months, their cash, at this point in time in most of these companies is a little bit too significantly lower than last year or the beginning of this year. So this is basically comparing to 6 months ago at the end of January. So the cash right now is around 4.6 billion compared to around 7.9 billion just 6 months ago, and that gives a current assets of around 28.3 billion compared to 28.5 billion 6 months ago. So that difference is pretty negligible, I'd say. And current liabilities are right now at 26.7 billion, but it is up a little bit from 23 billion just 6 months ago. It looks like that is probably going to be okay, but right now, obviously they do have a current ratio greater than 1, so that basically means the current assets are greater than the current liabilities, which is something you always want to see. And then total assets sitting around $70.8 billion with total liabilities sitting around $68.7 billion. So, pretty solid numbers there. The one thing that I did notice actually on Lowe's balance sheet that I haven't really taken the time to look at yet, or kind of tried to learn more about, but I'm going to be trying to do that in the next month or so. So maybe I'll share some of that information that I learned with you guys. But on Lowe's balance sheet, their stockholder equity right here, which is basically the total assets minus the total liabilities, was actually negative. So that was sort of interesting to me. And in this case with Home Depot, their equity is positive at around $2 billion, which seems a little bit low ratio wise to the amount of total assets, and then the amount of actual equity. But I definitely want to look more into what exactly that means about the company. But I think I could say it's good that it's positive in the case of Home Depot. And right down here are just a statement of earnings. So net sales for the quarter around $41 billion, which seems like a lot of sales to me, so that's pretty cool. This was definitely up from last year, which was around $38 billion. And gross profits were actually up as well, from about 12.9 billion last year to 13.7 this year. And then when operating expenses are taken into account, operating income is at around $6.6 billion compared to $6 billion last year. And then when you take into account interest and income taxes, the net income there is $4.8 billion this year compared to $4.3 billion for last year. So obviously good to see slight increases year over year. In some cases they're maybe a little bit more than slight, which is good to see. And then going down here, they do have some information about dividends. Obviously you can see that dividends that they paid out are increasing from around $1.6 billion last year, second quarter, to around $1.8 billion this quarter. So that's pretty cool. And then there was one other thing I wanted to look at down here. I think they had some information, maybe it's up here. They had some information about, shares outstanding and share buybacks. And I cannot find that right now. But I believe, right here, they basically spent in this quarter around $3 billion on repurchasing shares of the stock. And I think sometime in May of 2021, they authorized a $20 billion share buyback program over the next few years, I think. I don't think there was a specific time. But if they rebuy, or if they buy back $3 billion of shares every quarter, that would take about 7 quarters, which is almost 2 years. So that's, I think that's pretty good to see. And down here, they actually break down some of their numbers a little bit more. So you can see within their sales, around $37.6 billion of that was in the US, and then the remaining $3.5 billion was outside the US. And as you can see here, they break it down between products and services, and the vast majority is on products. Obviously they sell stuff in their store, and they do have services, like they have rentals probably and some other stuff. So that was about $1.4 billion of revenue. And then they also break it down based on their product lines. They have building materials, which is building materials, electrical, lighting, lumber, millwork, and plumbing. Then they have decor, which is appliances, decor and storage, flooring, kitchen and bath, and paint. And then they have hard lines, which is hardware, indoor garden, outdoor garden, and tools. So the cool thing, I think, is that when they break it down like that, pretty much these revenues are very consistently split up 1/3 to each segment, which I think is pretty cool, that they have those three diverse segments, and that their revenue is split up pretty equally among those. So next we're going to look at the dividends for Home Depot, and as you can see, the yield is right around 1.97%, which is just a little bit higher than Lowe's. I think Lowe's was around 1.75%, so pretty close there, but a little bit higher. Their payout ratio, though, is also higher at around 45%. I believe Lowe's was around 28 or 30%. And again, the dividend growth rate is a little bit higher as well, at a 19.38% in the last 5 years, which is pretty much astronomical for a solid dividend company to have that high of a dividend growth rate. I think Lowe's was pretty good as well, around 16%. But the one place that Lowe's totally beats out Home Depot is within this dividend growth category. It says Home Depot has only been growing their dividend for about 12 years now, which is not nothing. It's something, and it's a good sign. But I think Lowe's has been growing their dividend for over 50 years, maybe near 60 now. So they really have that consistency and the trust of shareholders, I think, with that dividend. So obviously there's nothing Home Depot can do to go in the past and change that. They just have to keep going into the future and showing shareholders that they can be consistent with that dividend. But for someone that might be interested in getting dividends for a long time, and being able to rely on that company to pay dividends for a long time, it is nice to see that history and track record from Lowe's. So that's really the only downside with their dividends, I would say, is this dividend growth and how long they've been growing the dividends. But I think that's really not that big of a deal, and I personally do have confidence that they will continue growing those dividends for a long time into the future, and eventually maybe get to be a dividend aristocrat or king at some point. But that's not something I'm really concerned about. And looking also at the valuation, just taking a look at the PE ratio, you can see their earnings. Their earnings look beautiful. They have been just growing nicely over time at a steady increase. And their PE ratio, it was around 9, 10, 15, 18 before 2016. But I would say since around 2016 or 2017, it's been steadily in this $20 or 20 range. It doesn't have any units. It's not $20. This 20 range, and right now it's sitting at around 23.59, which isn't bad at all. I don't think. I think it's a bit lower than Lowe's PE ratio. And we can look here at the average PE ratio for the consumer cyclical or consumer discretionary sector, and that average is 20.73. The Lowe's or Home Depot is still a little bit above that average there, but they actually are also above the average for the retail sector, which is 17.12. So that's definitely interesting to see that they're even a great company like Lowe's is above the overall sector. And obviously they are a great company, so maybe that explains some of it, but it is interesting to see. We will look at the stock price here, and we can see since March they've just been on a tear. They just had a absolute stellar 2 or 3 months there. They just went crazy, and they've just kind of been consolidating since then. So this range they're trading in is just kind of getting smaller and smaller. So I think from a technical perspective, that could mean the stock may start to make some sort of move to the upside or downside that's a little bit more significant in the next few months. But I'm certainly no technical expert. I just like to look where it is over time, and how that's looking. If it's just going straight up into the right super high, then it might not be the best time to buy, because it might be a little bit overvalued, right? But there's obviously many other things to consider. So for me personally, I think the price right now is a little bit too high. Just a few months ago, 6 months ago, is $250, and just a year before that, if we look here on the further out chart, the year before that it was around 150. So the stock is up over 100% since the bottom here in March of 2020, which that is pretty crazy. So like I said, I'm not really looking to buy here. I think, maybe somewhere below this $300 mark would be pretty decent. But I would definitely like to see something a little bit further, maybe around 275, 285. Those are not bad prices either. But for me right now, I think it's a little bit overvalued. Let me know what you guys think might be the fair value of Home Depot stock. I would be interested to hear if you guys do own any and at what average price you got in. I just want to thank you guys for watching to the end of the video. And again, if you did not see my lows video, definitely go check it out right up here, and I will see you guys in the next one.